All right, today we're tackling a real economic puzzle, one that comes to us from a recent Taipei Times editorial. It's a fascinating story about a country that looks incredibly successful on paper, but when you scratch the surface, the reality for a lot of people is, well, very different. So this is the big question, right? How can a country's economy be firing on all cylinders, breaking records left and right, but a huge chunk of its population just isn't feeling it in their wallets? Let's dig into the data from the article and see what's really going on. Okay, so to really get this whole paradox, you first have to see the good news. And I mean the really good news. We're talking about some absolutely blockbuster numbers that make the economy look like a total powerhouse. So get this. At one point, government statistics were forecasting economic growth of over 7%. I mean, that's the kind of performance that hadn't been seen in over a decade. It really paints a picture of an economy that is just on fire. And it wasn't just about overall growth either. The IMF was also projecting that the average wealth per person, what economists call GDP per capita, was set to actually overtake its major neighbors, Japan and South Korea. Now that is a massive deal. And yeah, looking at this chart just makes it crystal clear. When you see that bar for Taiwan standing taller than economic giants like Japan and South Korea, wow, it really hits home just how big of a success story we're talking about, at least on the surface. But wait, there's more. The good news just keeps coming. We're talking about the 8th largest stock market in the entire world. Exports, smashing records. Trade surplus, unprecedented. And what's driving all this? The stuff that's building our future. World-leading computer chips, AI hardware, you name it. Seriously, by any standard metric, the economy looks absolutely fantastic. So with an economy this strong, with numbers this impressive, you'd think everyone's celebrating, right? That all this wealth is trickling down into people's paychecks? Well, this is where the story takes a sharp turn. This is the but. And boom, here it is. This chart just lays the problem bare. Remember how Taiwan's wealth per person was supposed to be higher? Well, look at the actual average monthly wage. It's way, way behind its neighbors. I mean, that's not a small gap. That's a huge difference in what people are actually taking home. And you know, the really crucial thing here is that this isn't some niche issue. We're talking about something that affects 80% of the entire workforce. The vast majority of people who rely on a salary are caught in this trap. For most people, this is the real story. So what gives? How can there be so much wealth but such stagnant wages? To figure that out, we have to do what they always say in the movies. Follow the money. We need to see who's getting what slice of this massive economic pie. Okay, quick economics concept, but it's super important. It's called labor share of GDP. Sounds complicated, but it's not. Just think of all the money a country makes in a year as one giant pizza. The labor share is simply the percentage of that pizza that goes to workers in their paychecks and benefits. Simple, right? And here's the kicker. That slice of the pizza for Taiwanese workers, it's been getting smaller over time. Back in the 90s, it was a pretty respectable 50-50 split. But then, around 2012, it started to drop, and it just kept dropping, all the way down to a new low of just over 43%. Now, is that a low number? Well, let's look around. In places like the US, Germany, and France, labor gets more than half the pie. Japan, 50%. Even South Korea is at 47%. So yeah, at 43.1%, Taiwan really stands out, and not in a good way. So the big question is, why? Why is labor share so low? Well, according to the experts cited in the article, a major reason is that the country's economy is kind of lopsided. It's almost like you have two completely different economies running at the same time. It's a real tale of two industries. On one side, you have the rockstar sector, chips and electronics. It's just soaring, right? Fueled by the global AI boom, helped along by supportive government policies, everything's going great. But then, you have pretty much everyone else, the more traditional industries. And for them, things are tough. They're just not part of that boom at all. And this split has created this feeling across the whole society, a general agreement that, hey, if you're not working in chips or electronics, you've basically been left out. The prosperity is happening, but it feels like it's over there, in that one part of the economy. It's like a huge party is going on, but you weren't invited. So let's zoom out. What's the big takeaway here? What does all this actually mean for people? Because, you know, the real impact of this paradox goes way beyond just the numbers in a bank account. The editorial argues the real problem is psychological. It's something called a sense of relative deprivation. And basically, it's that feeling you get when you see other people surging ahead while you feel like you're stuck in place. Even if your life isn't objectively bad, seeing that growing gap just feels unfair. It's less about how much you have and more about how you're doing compared to everyone else.
And that brings us to the article's main punchline. Dealing with that feeling of being left behind is actually more important than just celebrating big, impressive GDP numbers. Because at the end of the day, you can't measure a country's health by looking at a spreadsheet alone.
Which leaves us with a really big question to chew on. And honestly, it's not just about Taiwan. It's for everywhere. How should we really measure a country's success? Is it all about the total size of the economy? Or is the true measure how many people actually get to share in that wealth and feel like they're a part of that success story?